for canceling my parents' card after they uninvited me from the trip I paid for? My name is Sarah and I was 4 years old when my life changed forever. That was the age my sister, Ashley, was born, and from one day to the next, I ceased to exist inside my own house. Everything revolved around her and her high-pitched little girl voice. My earliest memories are filled with the sound of Ashley singing. By the time she was 3, she was already the star of every family gathering. While I stayed in the corner holding trays of snacks I had helped Mom prepare, Ashley had an angelic voice that made everyone quiet down and look at her. My parents, Mark and Susan, were convinced she would be the next big music star. "Sarah, go and help your sister practice her scales," Mom would say without even looking up from her phone. She was always recording another video of Ashley to send to the family group chat. "And make sure you've done the dishes first." I was 8 years old then and Ashley was barely 4. While she twirled around the living room in a pink tutu they had bought her for her singing lessons, I learned to use the washing machine because Mom was too busy coordinating her schedule. "Why can't I go to Megan's birthday?" I asked one Saturday morning when I was 12. Mom rolled her eyes. "Because Ashley has a performance at the community center, and we need you to help us with the costume changes." "But I promised Megan I would go," I tried to insist, knowing it wouldn't do any good. "Don't be selfish, Sarah," Dad chimed in without looking up from his newspaper. "Your sister needs you. She actually has real talent. Unlike..." He stopped short, but I understood perfectly what he meant. "Unlike me." I remember the day everything changed for Ashley. She was 11 and I was 15. She had gone to the mall with some friends without any adult supervision, something I would never have been allowed to do at that age. They spent hours at the ice cream parlor ordering sundae after sundae, competing to see who could eat more. They felt grown up and free, almost famous. The next morning, Ashley woke up with a sore throat. At first, everyone thought it was just a cold, but it got worse fast and ended up being a severe infection that damaged her vocal cords. The doctor said she might never sing the same way again. I was in the kitchen doing chores when they got back from the doctor's office. I barely opened my mouth to ask what had happened when Mom exploded. "This is your fault," she yelled at me, her face red with rage. "You are her older sister. You should have been watching her. How could you have let her go to the mall unsupervised?" "But I was doing the laundry and cleaning the bathroom just like you told me to." I tried to defend myself, feeling my throat tighten. "Excuses," Dad thundered, slamming his hand on the table. "You are grounded for a month. No phone, no television, no going out. Nothing. Maybe that will teach you to take some responsibility." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Ashley's muffled crying in the next room, and I made myself a very simple promise. Someday I would build a life where I wouldn't have to live in anyone's shadow, neither as a servant nor as a scapegoat. I just had to survive a few more years in that house. The next 3 years went by between schoolwork, piles of chores, and blame that wasn't mine. Every time Ashley got into trouble, sneaked out at night, skipped classes, or secretly used Mom's credit card, somehow the blame ended up on me. I was the one who wasn't paying attention, the one who should have set a better example, the one ruining her future. The acceptance letter from Central State University arrived one April afternoon, and I placed it on the kitchen table, right next to the meatloaf Mom had prepared. I picked dinner time on purpose, knowing they couldn't escape the conversation so easily. "It's the most affordable option," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "The tuition is reasonable, and I already have a portion covered with a scholarship. I just need help with what's left." "We don't have the money, Sarah," Dad said without looking up from his plate. Ashley let out a little laugh from her seat. "Maybe you should have developed a real talent instead of just doing chores," she muttered loudly enough for all of us to hear. "Could you co-sign a student loan for me?" I insisted, ignoring her jab. "I'll sign an agreement promising to pay back every penny when I graduate and get a job. Please, this is important to me." Mom let out that long sigh she had perfected over the years. "Look, honey, we are not going to go into debt," she said in a tired tone. "College isn't for everyone. Why don't you look for a job at the mall or at that new cafe downtown? That would be more realistic." "But they gave me a scholarship for most of the tuition," I protested. "I already did the math. I put together a budget, I reviewed everything. I only need help with the rest." "Enough," Dad interrupted, dropping his fork on his plate. We said no, and that is final. Some people are born to go to college and others are not. Accept it and move on. I stared at my untouched dinner, trying to hold back my tears. Through my blurry vision, I managed to see Ashley's satisfied smile, enjoying the show as always. She was the star, and I was the stagehand who cleaned up after the performance. That night I called my best friend, Grace. We had known each other since middle school. We had gotten close because we were both a little different from everyone else. They saw me as the dull daughter of the perfect family. They saw her as the Korean girl from the restaurant, because her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Park, owned the Golden Bowl, a very popular restaurant downtown. They aren't going to help. I sobbed over the phone. They won't even consider co-signing a loan. All these years of getting the best grades, of doing everything they asked, and they won't even try. Grace stayed silent for a moment. Come to the restaurant tomorrow, she said finally. My parents want to talk to you. The next night I was sitting in the small office of the Golden Bowl behind the main dining room with Grace and her parents. It was after closing. The smell of food still lingered in the air. They had known me for years. I had spent countless afternoons doing homework there, escaping the chaos of my house. We have seen you grow up, Sarah, Mrs. Park said in a soft voice. You are like a second daughter to us. Grace told us everything. Mr. Park nodded slowly. We will pay your tuition, he announced, pushing some papers toward me. I started to protest, but he raised his hand to quiet me. You will work here part-time while you study, with a good salary and a flexible schedule. You will pay us back little by little with no interest. This is not a gift. It is an investment in your future. I felt something loosen in my chest. For the first time, an adult was reaching out to me without demanding anything more than effort and honesty. I accepted. A few months later, I moved into the dorms at Central State University. My parents barely noticed when I started packing. They were too busy planning Ashley's big piano recital, their new attempt to find her a talent to replace the voice she had lost. I started classes during the day and worked at the Golden Bowl in the afternoons and evenings. I learned everything, from waiting tables and running the register to taking inventory and coordinating shifts. The restaurant became my second home, and the Park family became my real family. The call came on a random Tuesday during my sophomore year. I was studying in the library. When I saw Mom's number on the phone screen, for a second I thought about letting it go to voicemail. We hadn't spoken in months, but in the end I answered. Hello, sweetie, she said in a distracted voice. There were background noises, probably Ashley practicing something new. I just wanted to see what you were up to. I'm in college, I replied, hoping she would ask how I was paying for it, if I needed anything at all. Oh, that's great, she muttered without much interest. Ashley is getting straight A's in her advanced placement classes. We're so proud. She is really finding her path since the incident that affected her voice. Not a single question about me, about my job, about my grades, nothing. They didn't care. And I was no longer planning on giving them explanations. The call ended as quickly as it had started. Mom hung up to go record Ashley playing a new piano piece. During my college years, I only went back home for major holidays. Every visit was the same. Relatives gathered around the big table, while Ashley dominated the conversation. My parents smiled and nodded. I helped in the kitchen as always, listening from there to the praises about her. The Christmas dinner of my junior year was different. I was placing a sweet potato casserole on the table when Aunt Carol started asking about Ashley's college plans. We have everything ready, Mom announced proudly. We've been saving for years. Her college fund is full. We have enough for her to go to whatever private university she wants. I almost dropped the baking dish. The heat burned me through the oven mitts, but the pain did not compare to what I felt when I understood what those words meant. 2 years earlier they had told me there was no money, that a loan was impossible, that college wasn't for everyone. That night in my childhood bedroom I called Grace and cried. They had the money, I whispered, curled up under my old blanket. They simply decided I wasn't worth it. Then prove them wrong, she said firmly. You already are. And she was right. I threw myself fully into my studies and work. I learned every detail of how a business operates. Meanwhile, I maintained a 3.9 out of 4.0 GPA. I became the employee who was always available, the one who solved problems, the one customers asked for by name. By the time I graduated, not only had I paid back every penny the Park family had fronted me, but I had also learned how to manage inventory, organize staff, negotiate with suppliers, and read financial statements. I had gone from being a waitress to a shift supervisor, then to an assistant manager. On my last day at the restaurant, Mr. Park called me into his office. "I have a friend at Continental Bank," he said, sliding a business card across the desk. "They need someone smart and hardworking, someone like you." I told him how you improved our inventory system. You increased efficiency by 30%. He is very interested in meeting you. A week after graduating, I walked into my new office at Continental Bank for the first time, wearing a suit I had bought with my own money. On the desk, a small nameplate waited for me. Sarah Miller, Junior Analyst. Within 6 months, I was already leading my own team. By the end of the first year, I had been promoted twice and was managing projects that caught the attention of upper management. I finally felt like what I did mattered. Christmas came around again, and as I pulled up to my parents' house, I noticed something felt weird. There were no lines of cars on the street, no lights decorating the facade like in other years, just one lit window in the living room. Mom opened the door wearing an old sweater instead of her typical elegant holiday clothes. "Is Ashley not coming?" I asked as I walked in, noticing the strange silence. The smell of the roasted turkey was missing too. "She is going to celebrate with some friends," Mom replied, wringing her hands. Their families rented a very exclusive cabin in the mountains. The dining room table, which in past Christmases almost broke under the weight of the food, only had a supermarket-bought ham and some microwave side dishes. There was no music, no jokes from my uncles, no noise. Dad was in his armchair, more stooped and gray-haired than I remembered him. "We've had some setbacks," Mom finally admitted. With a voice barely louder than a whisper, she looked at Dad, and he nodded. "The investment your father made didn't turn out well. We had to take out loans to cover the losses. This year there wasn't enough for a big Christmas." I watched them as they picked at their food without enthusiasm. These were the same people who used to look so confident, so in control of everything. The ones who had controlled every aspect of my life. Now they looked small, defeated. Despite everything, I felt something in my chest that I couldn't name. Maybe it was pity. "Give me a minute," I said, taking my phone out of my purse. I checked the delivery apps, thankful for the few fine dining restaurants that still delivered on those dates. 20 minutes and several $100s later, I had ordered a full feast. When the food arrived, the house filled with familiar smells. Well-roasted meat, smooth mashed potatoes, baked vegetables, real desserts. For a while, everything felt almost like before, almost. While we ate, I noticed how Mom kept glancing at my designer watch and the silk blouse that cost more than their monthly utilities. "We have been thinking about something," she said at last, exchanging a look with Dad. "Since you are in such a good position, maybe you could help us out a little bit, just until we get back on our feet." I looked at them over my glass of wine. Part of me wanted to repeat their own words back to them. "College isn't for everyone. There is no money for you." But I saw their faces marked by wrinkles and I couldn't. "I can add you as an authorized user on my credit card," I heard myself say. "With a monthly limit." Mom's eyes lit up. $1,000 a month, I clarified firmly. "Not a penny more." They nodded quickly. It was more than they expected and less than I made in a week. A few days later, I had the bank send the card in Mom's name. They promised me they would use it only for the essentials. For several months they complied. The charges were reasonable. Groceries, utilities, the occasional simple dinner. I barely noticed the money going out. Sometimes I saw the name of the supermarket where I myself had worked during the holidays to save something for college. The irony made me smile. 2 years passed and foolishly I came to believe that things were improving. The monthly allowance created a sort of rhythm in our relationship. Mom would call to tell me what they had spent it on, and little by little those conversations turned into longer chats, or so I thought. Ashley and I also started talking again. Even though her competitiveness hadn't changed at all, every time I mentioned an achievement at work, her smile would tighten. "Senior project manager, how great," she would say with the same tone she used to use to comment on my high school diplomas. I am about to get a promotion at the design firm where I work. It's small but very exclusive. Not just anyone can handle the pressure. Mom and Dad wouldn't stop talking about Ashley's new boyfriend, Ryan, son of the owners of a well-known real estate agency in the city. He comes from a very good family, Mom repeated every month. The kind of son-in-law you dream of. Meanwhile, the credit card expenses remained normal. Groceries, bills, an occasional cheap restaurant, nothing suspicious. I almost felt good being able to help them, as if that financial support were healing at least a bit of the wounds from the past. Until the social media post appeared that changed everything. Paradise with my loves, engaged, Maui blessed, read the caption of the photo. The image showed Ashley and Ryan hugging on a white sand beach. Behind them were my parents and Mr. and Mrs. Wallace smiling, all holding drinks in their hands. My finger froze on the screen. When had that happened? Why hadn't anyone told me anything? Why hadn't I been invited? The next post made my blood run cold. So grateful to Mom and Dad for making this magical engagement trip possible. They insisted on treating both families to this dream vacation. The best parents in the world, sponsored by love. Something clicked in my head. I opened my banking app with trembling hands. There were the charges from the authorized user card. It was no longer $1,000. They were enormous amounts, impossible to justify with basic needs. 6 first-class plane tickets to Maui. A week at an all-inclusive luxury resort, in several ocean view suites, dinners at expensive restaurants inside the hotel, spa treatments, sunset excursions, special engagement packages, over $40,000. All in my name, all without my permission, all for an engagement party I wasn't even invited to. My hands were shaking so much that I had to try 3 times before I managed to dial Mom's number. 123 rings. Hello, she answered in a cheerful voice. Soft island music could be heard in the background. Waves, laughter, glasses clinking. Ashley's high-pitched laugh could be clearly distinguished among the rest. Where are you? I asked, using the same calm tone I used in difficult bank meetings. Oh, sweetie, she hesitated, and the music sounded a bit further away, as if she had stepped aside. Your dad and I decided to take a little break. It has been a very tough few months, you know how life is. We needed to breathe a little. A little break in Maui at the Emerald Shores Resort with Ashley, Ryan, and the whole Wallace family. That kind of break costs over $40,000, Mom, and it is charged to my card, I said, looking at the phone screen. Silence. I heard muffled voices. She covered the microphone, but I still managed to hear fragments. She knows? Now what? Let Ashley talk to her. Why did you use my card to pay for everyone's trip? And why wasn't I even invited to my sister's engagement party? I added without raising my voice. More murmuring. Then the sound of the phone changing hands. The voice that came next was Ashley's, loaded with contempt. Look, Miss Executive, she said, drawing out the words. We don't need you here. You're not part of this anymore. You're just a walking ATM. We don't want you to come and ruin everything with your little success stories. The words hit me hard, but I took a deep breath. That ATM just paid $20,000 for your little engagement party, and another $20,000 for the flights and extras. It is my money that is holding up your perfect moment, I replied. Well, that's what you're good for, right? She snapped with a loud, cold laugh. You work at your super bank and we enjoy ourselves. You are finally serving a useful purpose. You were always good at following orders. At least now you do something worthwhile. The call abruptly cut off. I tried to dial back immediately, but they no longer answered. I called Dad's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried Ashley's number, and it rang once before she rejected it. In a matter of minutes, I started getting notifications. This user has blocked you. My parents' and sisters' profiles disappeared from all my social media. A single message managed to come through before Mom blocked my number. We are tired of your attitude and your jealousy. Leave us alone. You have already ruined enough special moments for Ashley. I stared at the text, feeling something hard and cold forming inside me. My hands were no longer shaking. I opened my banking app again. This time I didn't go to the transaction list but to the Manage Cards section. Every click was like breaking a link in a chain that had kept me tied down since I was a little girl. First, I called the customer service number on the back of my card. I explained that there were unauthorized travel expenses on an authorized user's card, that I was not in Hawaii, and that I had not given permission for those charges. The representative verified my information, reviewed the transactions, and after asking me several questions, confirmed that they could open a fraud investigation, cancel any future reservations made with the card, and block the physical card immediately. "Let's proceed," I said without hesitation. The extra nights at the resort, the sunset excursions, and the spa treatments were all canceled. The return tickets for the 6 people were removed from the system. The authorized user card was permanently deactivated. I left my phone on the table and waited, imagining their faces when the hotel informed them that the rooms were no longer paid for, when they tried to buy one more thing and the card was declined, when the time came to return and they discovered they had no flight. 3 hours later, the phone started vibrating nonstop. Calls from Mom, from Dad, from Ashley, from unknown numbers with a Hawaii area code, surely from the Wallace family. I didn't answer any of them. Then the messages arrived. "Sarah, call us immediately. It is an emergency," Mom wrote. "Fix this right now. You are making a fool of the whole family," Dad ordered. "You better solve this or I swear," Ashley threatened without finishing the sentence. "This is Ryan, my parents are furious. You have to reinstate the reservations," read another message from a number I didn't recognize. As the hours passed, the tone changed. "Sweetheart, please let's talk. We can reach an agreement," Mom wrote. "We are going to pay you. Just help us get out of this," Dad insisted. "Come on, Sarah, it's my engagement. Don't hold a grudge," Ashley tried. "My parents are thinking about canceling everything. Please, this got out of hand," Ryan sent. I didn't reply to anyone. I took screenshots of all the messages and then blocked every number and every account. But the evidence remained saved. I had a feeling I would need it later. Around midnight, I got a notification from a social network. "Ashley Miller has posted a new status." I opened the post. "I can't believe my own sister tried to ruin the happiest moment of my life," she wrote. "She has always been jealous of my happiness, but this is too much. Canceling our family vacation out of pure spite. Who does that to their own sister's engagement party? Some people simply can't stand seeing others happy. Toxic family, broken heart." The comments did not take long to appear. "How awful. Poor thing. How can anyone do that to you? I never liked your sister. Her envy is so obvious. Your parents don't deserve that. Stay strong, gorgeous." I had stayed silent my whole life. Not anymore. My fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as I typed my reply. "I am going to tell you what really happened," I began. 2 years ago, my parents started using an authorized card on my account, with a $1,000 monthly limit for basic expenses. I agreed to help them because they were going through a hard time. There was never a problem. Yesterday I discovered they had spent over $40,000 of my money on a luxury trip to Maui to celebrate my sister's engagement with the Wallace family. They never told me anything. They never asked for my permission, and they didn't even invite me. When I called to ask why, Ashley told me I was no longer part of the family, that I was just a walking ATM. And my mother's last message before blocking me was, "We are tired of your attitude. Leave us alone." Yet, I reported the charges I never authorized. Yes, I stopped the payments for the trip I never agreed to fund. Yet, I stopped financing a vacation where I wasn't welcome. Here are the screenshots of the conversations. Here are the credit card statements. Here is the truth about the poor victim and her ruined engagement. You decide who the toxic person really is. I uploaded the images one by one and waited. The turnaround was immediate. The comments changed their tone. "Ashley, that is fraud. How do you take that much money from your own sister without permission? Using her money and not even inviting her. That's cold. Sarah, you did the right thing. No one is obligated to finance their family's bad behavior. How embarrassing for the Wallaces to be caught up in this mess." Ashley's followers started disappearing. Others stayed but kept quiet. Some even deleted their previous messages. The perfect story of the star daughter was crumbling in public. The rest of the disaster reached me in the form of gossip told by acquaintances, screenshots of statuses, and shared videos. I found out that my parents had to borrow money from 3 different friends to be able to afford economy class tickets back, that they were escorted out of the resort in the middle of the day because their key cards stopped working and their payments were declined, that Ashley made a scene in the lobby that someone recorded and uploaded to the internet. The final blow came when Mrs. Wallace discovered that the gifted trip had actually been paid for by a daughter they hadn't even wanted to invite. "We trusted you," they say she yelled at my mother by the pool. "You told us you would take care of everything. Can you imagine the embarrassment we have been through?" Ashley, true to her style, did not help. "Stop playing the victim," she replied, losing her temper. "If you can't afford a few days in Maui, maybe your son isn't good enough for our family." Ryan stayed quiet for a moment, looking at her as if he were seeing her for the first time. "You are right about one thing," he finally said, taking the engagement ring off her finger. "Someone here isn't good enough for the other's family, and it is not me." He left with his parents. The engagement was canceled right there, in front of the tourists who watched the scene with curiosity. A week after they returned to the city, the knocking on my apartment door began. "Sarah, sweetheart, please open up," Mom's voice pleaded on the other side. "We need to talk. We know we made a mistake. Give us a chance to explain," Dad added. I sat on the couch without moving, with the TV on but muted. The blue light from the screen illuminated the living room while they kept insisting for 20 minutes. The building manager called me later. He told me my parents had tried to convince him to let them up with the excuse of a family emergency. "If they show up again, please do not let them in," I asked him calmly. That night Grace came to visit me with food from the Golden Bowl. We sat on the balcony looking at the city lights. "Your post was shared in several online support groups for people with difficult families," she told me. "A lot of people are calling you a hero for finally setting boundaries." I thought about all the years I had spent trying to earn my parents' love, trying to prove that I deserved a little bit of what they gave Ashley, about all the money I had handed over to them with the hope that they would finally see me as a daughter and not as a resource. "You know what the weirdest thing is?" I said, following a plane crossing the sky with my eyes. "For the first time in my life, I don't care what they think of me. I don't care if they regret it. I don't care if they change. I am simply done. I no longer want that place at their table." Sometimes the hardest part of growing up is not learning to fend for yourself. It is learning when it is time to walk away. I had spent my whole life in Ashley's shadow, enduring blame and humiliation so as not to lose a family I never really had. It was time to walk toward the light on my own. Comment. Setting boundaries with the people we love most can be one of the hardest things to do. Sometimes we spend years trying to prove our worth to those who simply refuse to see it. Realizing that you cannot buy love or respect is a painful but necessary step toward healing. Walking away from an unhealthy situation does not make you a bad person. It simply means you are finally taking responsibility for your own life and choosing to protect your peace. True family is built on mutual respect, kindness, and genuine support, not on what you can provide for them. You deserve to surround yourself with people who celebrate your successes and value your presence. I hope you always remember that your self-worth is never defined by how others treat you. Learning to say no is an act of courage that opens the door to a better future. Thank you for spending your time with me today, and I wish you the strength to always choose your own happiness. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.